Okay.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and call this December 22nd meeting of the Referendum Ad Hoc Committee to order. It was properly notified in the courthouse on the bulletin board. Agenda item number 3 is agenda approval, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Bob. I'll do that.
Okay, motion by Frank.
I'll second that.
Second by Carol. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. We've got an approved agenda. Agenda item number 4, public comments. Is there anyone from the public joining us on WebEx tonight who would like to talk, share any thoughts with the committee? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to agenda item number 5, approval of minutes. So we've got those corrected minutes from December 5th, I believe, and then we also have the minutes from, is it December 12th? Those are on our iPad folders and they're online as well. So I'm looking for a motion to approve both sets of minutes, I guess. We'll reapprove the 5th since it's been corrected.
There's Bob. I'll move it.
Okay, motion by Frank.
Carol,
Second. Okay, second by Carol. Any discussion on those minutes? And let's see, I'm not seeing Aaron Unbehan on the line anymore.
I'm still here.
Okay.
I'm going to have
You
to
are.
abstain. I'm going to have to abstain from the minutes, Sean.
I see you are named Aaron, like AARON. That's why I got confused. I thought you were Aaron Wallace from the Sheriff's Department. So.
Oh, well, it might just be my phone number, 2988. I'm not sure how it came up because for some reason WebEx wouldn't let me join through WebEx, so I had to call in. But I have to abstain from the minutes.
Okay, so Barb Scott, I think she renamed you as Aaron, so we can see you on here. It looks like Aaron Wallace might also be on here. So, so if we only have 3 people voting for the minutes, I don't know that we can take action on those, can we? Or
yep. You still have a majority of a quorum.
We do. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Okay, so I'm in favor of those 2, so that motion passes and both sets of minutes are approved. So that takes us to agenda item number 6, results of the county board survey. So I sent these out yesterday when I sent the agenda. These are also posted online now too, but everyone on the email, I think pretty much everyone on this list who's here in the meeting today should have been on that email list. There might have been one person who wasn't, and you can go to the committee's website to see the county board survey, the results of that if you'd like. Let's see, Aaron, Bob, and Steve. So the committee members, would you like a brief overview? Would you like me to walk through the results, or were you able to look at these ahead of time? How would you all like to handle that?
Mr. Chair, I looked through it and I understand what's there. What my questions will be is how it relates back to the other financial stuff that we've got going on.
As far as what we're going to recommend.
Right.
Yeah. And that's in agenda item number 7. I just sent the materials out like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I can walk through it in that context if that would be more helpful.
That would be the place I'd like to hear you walk through it.
Okay. Supervisor Frank and Mr. Unbehan, is that okay with both of you two?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay, and I see Supervisor Turk has joined us now. So Supervisor Turk, we're going to move to agenda item number 7, unless you want me to walk through the results of the county board survey. If you need to hear that before we go to agenda item number 7.
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and go to agenda item number 7 then. And Mr. Langrick, if you can go ahead and pull up the cover sheet so folks can see that or follow that on the screen, that would be great. Okay, thank you. So what I've gotten written down here so far is a recommended motion to release the current draft to the referendum report for comments and further development to be considered by this committee at our next meeting. So back in August, on August 8th, this committee approved a report outline. So this is what I used to build the reports today while I was working on it. There are some slight changes, and I'll just point those out right now. If you scroll up a little bit, Mr. Langrick, I'd say the main big change is we had, I'm sorry, scroll down. That's what I meant. Thank you. The main big change is that second to last black bullet point where it says summary of the county's budget and services provided. That was really embedded in all that research we did, and I included that as an appendix. I didn't get into much detail on education of the electorate under messaging and platforms. I kind of punted on that one because I think we need to do a little more work on that one before we get into detail. But pretty much for the rest of it, I just followed the outline and maybe moved a couple things around, but that's where that's at. So Mr. Langrick, if you go to now 07A, which is the draft referendum report. So it's a 12-page document. It does have page numbers at the bottom of each page. It has a table of contents, which you can see right now, which roughly aligns with that outline that we just went through. I'm just going, and at the bottom it lists all the members of our committee, and then page 3 starts with an executive summary. So I'm just going to give an overview. Just jump in if you have questions. I'm not going to read every word, but I'm going to try to hit the high points, and I know people are going to need time to digest this more, but I'll just try to give you an overview, and hopefully that'll facilitate a discussion here. So the overview is that all in draft form here, that we're proposing a referendum question to be included on the April 3rd ballot regarding an increase to Richland County's property tax levy. It just describes the state situation, how we can work around the state restrictions by going to referendum. It says that we developed the question through extensive research, communication with committees and boards, and a survey of the preferences of the entire Richland County board. And then 3 main actions for the county board are recommended in this draft here. The first is long-term protection of current service levels in the sheriff's and register and probate departments. And that is accomplished by shifting operating expenses in the highway, HHS, and administration departments to short-term borrowing. Those are specified expenses, so we'll get into those later, what they are, and they correspond to the survey that we took last week. The second is a referendum question that gives voters the option to provide protection for current service levels in various areas. And I listed them out. These come in the order that they came in the survey as ranked by the county board. So those are Simons, family court, treatment court, emergency management, mental health therapy, coroner, extension, veterans, and nutrition program. And it says here that cuts in these areas are recommended if the referendum fails. And then the third main summary in the executive summary here is that near-term reductions in the HHS department are recommended, including the elimination of 5 full-time positions and a reduction in their technology budget and their transportation program. So that's the overview of this report. So the ballot question on the next page, this took me a couple hours to finally accept and develop how the wording of this has to be. And I spent some time on the Department of Revenue website. I was on the phone with Clerk Kalish and Mr. Langrick today, and I was struggling with the results of our county board survey and the way the state restricts our ability. So saying all that, I'm going to read the question and then I'm going to explain how I got to this draft question for you all to consider. So the question says, under state law, the increase in the levy of Richland County for the tax to be imposed for the next fiscal year, 2024, is limited to 1.2%, which results in a levy of $10,380,997. Shall Richland County be allowed to exceed this limit and increase the levy for the next fiscal year, 2024, for the purpose of maintaining current service levels for Simon's Recreation, Family Court, Treatment Court, Emergency Management, Mental Health Therapy, Coroner, UW Extension, Veterans, and Nutrition Program by a total of 10%, which results in a levy of $11,243,695 and include the increase of $1,022,154 for fiscal years 2025 through 2027. So I've got a blank spot here for a resolution that is to be determined, but that we need to develop by the next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. Got a little section here on the referendum dates. And then the next section is about state restrictions. We've already gone over this, so I won't read it. It's in our research document as well, or our public education report, rather. Talks about how state law restricts our abilities to levy. Then on the following page, there are two charts. It shows the history of our levy. You all have seen this before. The second chart, though, is new, and it shows Richland County debt. Because we're referencing that law, the constitutional law about how our debt can't go above 5% of the amount of all the property in our county. I included a chart showing how our existing debt makes up a third of that number, and we have 2/3 remaining debt capacity. That's that chart that's just on that pie chart that just showed up on your screen. And then this next, right below at the top of page 6, this is really where I kind of got hemmed in. I felt like boxed into a corner. I don't know if you all feel that way too after hearing all this, but the state, I'll read this whole thing because this is important, I think. The state of Wisconsin restricts how the county can pose a question to voters. These restrictions are described on the Department of Revenue's website, and it's footnoted below. And if you just Google Wisconsin levy limits referendum, I think this page will come up as well if you can't get to that link. So it says, for example, the county may not ask voters to raise taxes to keep up with rising costs on an ongoing basis. For example, we can't put in a ballot question, we want to do 4.5% a year, or we want to do 2% a year. The county may only ask voters for one lump sum of amount for the upcoming fiscal year. They do give us 3 options within that limit. They say you can limit it to 1 year. Just say, I just want $1 million extra bucks for 2024. You can limit it to a set number of years. So you can say, we're asking for $1 million each in 2024, 25, 26, and 27. Or you can have it be ongoing. You can say, we'd like to ask for $1 million, and we'd like to ask for $1 million into perpetuity, just on an ongoing basis. So the way that the question that I read off is written currently is it's limited to a set number of years, 2024 through 2027. So I'll get into a little bit more about how that question was developed, but that's just sort of the rules we're bound by the state. Does anyone want to jump in with any questions or comments before I keep going?
Yeah, a question, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
We're limited to a set number of years. Can there be a specific lump sum for each of those years that it increases, not as a percent, but just as a specific number?
I did not find on the Department of Revenue website where that is allowed. They describe very specifically how you can do it, and they reference the state laws, and I did not find that.
So that's why you had to do those manipulations that you're coming up on.
That's right.
An average number, and you'll get to that.
I'll get to how I got to the $1 million number.
Right.
Yeah, because that's really important, and that's a tricky one that we're going to need to talk about. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sean, I'd like just to step back to the question a bit, and
Yeah.
thank you. That's very, very good. I'm trying to think of people who don't know all the details and trying to make sure that we catch some of those, that explanation. And so on the second sentence, it says 2014, comma is limited to 1.2%, which results in a levy of 10 million. When I first looked at that, it looked like the 1.2% was $10 million. The 1.2% increases the total levy to $10.3 million, correct? I know our budget's only 10 million, so I know that. But when I first looked at that, it said to me 1.2 says that's going to raise the levy 10 million. I don't know that I want to make sure the general taxpayer, they may have no idea what our levy limit is. Can we put in 1.2% results in a total levy of, or can we put the increase in there, what 1.2% increase is? Does that make sense? Anybody else?
Well, it makes sense to me. But Mr. Langrick, I don't know if you can scroll down to the bottom of the page where the link is to the Department of Revenue, and if you can pull it up on your screen, I'll show you exactly how I wrote the question, because it was pretty
based off of that.
It was based off of that, so
Okay,
I'm just gonna have him go to that if it comes up, and you might have to copy the link and paste it.
I can look that up. I can pull it up.
You can. Okay.
Yeah, I'll pull it up on my own here.
I think I have it up, Sean. The section right here.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. Okay, so these are the examples that they give on their webs. And actually, if you could scroll up further, Mr. Langrick, there's a specific part that prescribes exactly what we can say before we get to the examples. So if you just go up on the screen, there we go, ballot language, right under there. It says, no, I got to go back down, where it's in blue, there's a heading that says ballot language. So in black, right underneath that, Mr. Frank, they say, the language on the ballot must state the question verbatim as provided in section 66.062 of Wisconsin statutes. So that's where I got that. And then if you go down to the examples now, Mr. Langreck, now we can change which one we use here. We don't have to use the limited set number of years, but what I used is at the top of page 2. So it's the third example, and it's an increase for a set number of years. So it's actually kind of nice the way they laid this out. This was probably one of the easier parts of my task today. Wherever it's in red, so I just replaced City of Badger with Richland County. So Mr. Langreck, just go down a little bit more so we can see the top of page 2. There we go, right there. So like where you want to say total levy,
I see what you're saying. You're following the statute. I just didn't.
They don't allow you to insert the word total on the second line there.
Exactly. That makes sense.
But wherever it's in red, we have some freedom there.
Yeah.
So.
Chair.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts before I keep going on?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
This may be I see Bob's point, but this may be a case where we have to rely on our education effort to help explain that.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, well, hearing no one else, let's go back.
Sean, I don't know if you can hear us, but you look like you're on pause. Or you lost connection. And there he goes.
I was just gonna say, I think he dropped.
Yeah, I can see him there. My guess is he's going to be dialing in here in just a minute because I know his internet has been flaky. I went to send him. I can't send him a text because I don't have my phone with me.
That's what happens when you live out here in the middle of nowhere. And he's out even further than I am.
It's gotten better, but it's a ways to go yet. Can anybody text Sean? I don't have my phone with me to send him a message. Just let him know.
I can.
Thank you. I see a phone number just joined the meeting. I'm guessing that's Sean. Hello.
Hello, Tom Rislow.
Oh, Tom. Hey, Tom. We're waiting for Sean to get reconnected. He lost his internet connection, so we're waiting for him to get back in. All right.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'll just stay on the phone, and if there's, let's see, mute.
You don't need to mute, Sean.
Barb, you might have to mute me if there's some sort of an echo. For some reason, I can't do that right now. So, and Joanne Krulats, thanks for vouching for me. Yes, when you live out in the middle of nowhere with Frontier Service in the Bloom City area, this is what we live with. So, okay. So let's see. I was just wondering if Mr. Langrek could go to page 6 of the document where it says how the question was developed. So this is the draft referendum report.
Okay, I have it up, Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Excellent, great. So we developed the question over a 6-month period. We began the process with a press release and research, and then we followed that by correspondence with committees and departments, and then finally we figured out a dollar amount and services for the question using the results of a survey to county board members. So on page 6, there's a section about press release and research. The press release I've got as an attachment, Appendix A to the report. All of these bullets right here and the key findings, which are in italics, these come from that public education report, which I'm now calling the research that we've done. So this is just a summary of things that everyone from this committee probably already knows, but it's intended to just bring out the highlights of what's in that research. And it kind of leads to some of the recommendations later here. So I won't go through those individually since we've already talked about a lot of those, but we can go back to them as needed. So the research is included as Appendix B in your folders and on that email that I sent earlier. Then the next section, which starts at the bottom of page 7, is communication with committees and departments. And here, this reviews the resolutions that the county board passed in August and how each resolution required a report with details as to how each committee would respond to required reductions to the property tax levy. And then it talks about how the amount in bold of each reduction corresponded approximately with the size of each committee's budget, as well as the reductions needed to balance the 5-year financial plan from Administrator Langrek. So that summary of all those things is included in the chart on the top of page 8. And this is the chart that was in our county board survey showing in orange the voluntary reductions that each committee made, and then in blue the other reductions that we're basically still dealing with. Then the next section at the bottom of page 8 talks about dollar amounts. So here it says county board members were surveyed in December to ask how much of an annual property tax increase they were comfortable with. So they were given figure number 4 as a guide. And then everyone responded, and the average was 4.55%. And that's shown in, sorry, I just gotta close my, I'm hearing a little echo in my room. Just close my iPad. So at the top of page 9, it inserts 4.55% in between 2.5% and 5% to show what that would equal. So if we did an annual 4.55% increase in property taxes over the 2023 levels, which are approximate, by the way, they're a little off, we would have a little over $2 million in increased revenue by the year 2027. So then below that chart, so it says here, since the state does not allow the county to ask for an escalating amount over a series of years, the recommended dollar amount of $1.02 million in the question was half of the annual tax increase that the county board was comfortable with on average, shown in figure 5. So as I was thinking about, you know, this, how to choose that dollar amount, I just came up with 2 ideas for maybe these are opportunities we can use, and maybe this is a path forward somehow. The first opportunity is that amount is roughly equal to the annual shared revenues that the county would receive from the state of Wisconsin if the state had kept up with 2001 levels of shared revenues plus inflation. So that's a potential opportunity. We could say to the public, we could make a commitment as a county board if we wanted to the voters to say that even though the state's allowing us, if you give us this authority to borrow this, to levy this additional tax through a referendum of $1 million, if the state chooses to make the commitment to get back to that 2001 level plus inflation, we could make a commitment to not levy that additional amount. It gives us the authority to levy that amount, but we don't have to levy that amount if we don't want to. It just allows us a new ceiling. So that could be one advantage. The second advantage might be that, so the highway department's annual operating levy is $1.7 million. $1 million of that includes purchases of equipment and asphalt. So if the referendum is approved and the county board chooses to raise taxes at a 4.5% annual rate, the additional $1 million could be raised through the increasing of short-term borrowing levy. We could do that incrementally over the years, so we could get to that $2 million target eventually that the county board gave us in that survey. So that's how I was thinking about the dollar amount. I'm just throwing it out there. Really want to know what you all think of that. And then the services part, I'll just jump into that unless someone wants to stop me. So we also asked county board members how they would prioritize services, and we did not look at the voluntary reductions that have already been made. We didn't ask people to prioritize those on the county board. We just asked them to prioritize, and this is at the top of page 10, the ones where we have not figured out how to reduce these voluntarily. So then at the bottom of the page 10, it shows all the county board member responses. So those little X's, those are where county board members said this is one of my top 10 priorities. Some county board members didn't choose to mark up the 10 X's, and you can see on the very bottom row how many X's each county board member chose. And then in the second to right column, you can see the total X's for each line, and in the very right column, you can see the rankings from 1 through 18. So the Sheriff's Department had the #1 ranking, Register and Probate had the #2 ranking, and so forth. The items highlighted in blue here, these are items, and this is described on the next page, these are not recommended for inclusion in the referendum question because we have other means to levy for those services. So we can levy for the highway department without going to the public. We can increase short-term borrowing on that one. So that was kind of my thinking about, how do you choose Simons and family court and treatment court, but why do you skip those other ones? So that's at least what I'm initially thinking here for you all to consider. On the top of page 11, there's a little more description here about how the question was written. It says it was written for the express purpose of protecting the top priorities of the county board. The sheriff's department and the register and probate are not included because the county board already has the ability to fund those items without the approval of the electorate through a referendum. The tool the county board can use is short-term borrowing. And then in a little more description here, I think most of you already know this, but just in case some folks don't, state statute allows the county board to borrow for capital highway projects, court-ordered placements, and property liability insurance. These are not recommended for inclusion because I already mentioned that. By 2027, these categories total approximately $1.5 million. Should the referendum fail, it is recommended that these priorities be protected from reductions using this tool of short-term borrowing. And then in the middle group, where there's black bullet points under the next paragraph, this is in the middle of page 11, if anyone's lost by now. Services in the middle of the grouping are recommended for inclusion on the referendum, and they're listed in order of priority by the county board. So they're not in alphabetical order. We could do it that way. I'm just telling you the way I listed them in the question were by priority level. So the higher priority level by the county board, it's more at the top. The lower priority, it's down at the bottom. I'll take a breather here and see if folks have any questions or thoughts.
So far, so good.
Okay, I'm going to keep going then. Consequences of the referendum passing versus failing. This is at the bottom of page 11. So no matter the outcome of a referendum, the referendum committee recommends 3 services at the bottom of the chart in Figure 7 be reduced in the coming fiscal year. The elimination of 5 full-time positions in the HHS department, the reduction in their technology budget, and the reduction in their transportation program. Should the referendum pass, the committee recommends preserving services listed on the referendum. Should it fail, the committee recommends beginning at the bottom of the list. So that would start with the nutrition program, I believe, and then the next up is veterans and so on and so forth, all the way up to Simons. And making reductions moving upward, particularly in the years of 2026 and 2027 as the finances of the county tighten further. And that gets to Mr. Langreich's 5-year financial plan, and that's in Appendix D. So it's another attachment that was in that email. I think it was 07E Appendix D financial plan was the name of it. If anyone wants to look that up, it's 10 pages long. It's really the basis for everything we're working on. So that's why it's included. It should be used as a guide for this process. Other commitments made by departments and their committees should be adhered to in a good faith effort to protect the top priorities of the county board. So an example would be like Pine Valley. They made a commitment to increasing their revenues by $445,000 in 2027. That number escalates between 2024 and 2027, and those numbers are included in Appendix D in the 5-year financial plan. So it's really, I think that plan is really going to be an accountability tool for us. And then on the last page, page 12, just very briefly, the education of the electorate. When I was at the Counties Association conference in September, I think I had mentioned this to the committee that their vice president for government affairs, he verbally offered the services of their PR firm. So I think, so I just wrote in here, the committee recommends engaging with this firm to assist the county in educating the voters. And then Steve Carroll, I included your research that you showed us at the last meeting. That's in Appendix E. And then I've just got all the appendices listed out here so that they would show up in the table of contents. So that's all I've got, and I'd love to hear what you all think.
Hey, Sean, question. I've been looking at the referendum tracking file where we're been trying to keep track of the status of all the different proposed cuts, and Clint has at the bottom of that file, he's got the remaining gap to directive goals. In other words, with all the identified stuff at that time, there was still a gap. Now, does the referendum that you've drafted, does it fill those gaps? I mean, we'd have to sit down and run some numbers, but I'm just wondering if you went back to that for reference.
Yeah, I did. That's partially how, well, I think the numbers just kind of almost, I won't say it's total magic, but I think they roughly align. So I think you're looking at the document 07E Appendix D financial plan. Is that right?
Like,
it's a 10-page document. It's his 5-year financial plan.
I was looking at the tracker he did, but it might have the same figures. Hang on.
Yeah, it should be in your iPad folder if you refreshed it. I don't know what he's got on the screen right now, but
I can speak to that if you'd like me to, Mr. Chair.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so the tracker element that's in your committee members, if you're looking in your files, if you go to Steve, you're referencing the one that's in the planning items, and it's the referendum tracking and survey, 21 December. Is that the document?
Yes.
Okay, so the numbers are going to be slightly off because they're answering two different questions. The numbers in the tracker are specifically kind of accounting for the directives that were put out in the directive resolutions. Now, the numbers that you're going to see on the gap is going to be different. That's going to show up on item 07E because that's also accounting for all the financial changes that took place during the 2023 budget. Remember that the directive resolutions went out very early in the 2023 budget, and we made adjustments to salaries and to insurances and a lot of different department adjustments. So the gap changed slightly from, after the fact, after we released out the directives. So that's where you would see the discrepancies. Does that make sense?
It does. It looks like I was probably not using the most up-to-date file to compare.
So yeah, Mr. Langreck had updated this other document that was in our meeting materials just for today, with a lot of stuff that's happened in the past several months. So that document is the most up-to-date document. It's more up-to-date than the one that you were looking at.
Okay, but I guess
Mr.
then
Farrell.
the question is the figure that you're now currently using in the referendum closes the gap as we see it now in his financial planning file.
That's correct. The financial plan file, which is Appendix D, on page 10, if you look at that bottom row, we are currently short $1.1 million in 2027.
Okay. All right.
Now,
I see it.
we're not short that much though in 2026, 2025, 2024. So that's part of the trick here, is because the state is so prescriptive in how they make us write questions. If we want to ask a question for several years, you have to kind of come up with a rough figure.
So either you do a referendum every single year, or you do this kind of like this averaging effort you did.
Yes.
Okay.
Now he's got it built in here. We were talking about this earlier when we were on the phone, me and him today. the peach lines, the four peach rows, which are right above that bottom line, these are the amounts that we could borrow for. And those total almost $1.5 million. So he's assuming within this that we're borrowing that entire $1.5 million. And that's by 2027. Now, we might not want to borrow that much. So that's the other reason that we might need some wiggle room with the operating referendum.
I'm with you. Yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
Other thoughts or questions for me or Clint or anyone else?
I don't know, it has been thoroughly researched. That's the way to do it. Thank you.
I guess my only question, I'm fine with motion to move it on for further development, but what do we know when our next meeting is?
So we had, and you're welcome, Bob. Thanks for saying that. It was my entire day today, and I bet most of Clint's too. So, but really, I don't mind if you all want to change anything. I mean, that is, I'm trying not to shoot in the dark, but I'm trying to roughly shoot toward a target that I think we're hearing from the rest of the county board. That's what I was shooting for here. But as far as our next meeting, we had talked at our last meeting about meeting on January 3rd to finalize the report. We could have a resolution ready by then to refer to finance and personnel. And I don't know if Chair Brewer, have you set a time, or Mr. Langrek, is there a time set for finance and personnel on Tuesday the 3rd?
We kind of have it templated for a 5 p.m., which is, I think, where we arrived at the committee to do a continuous.
Okay, great. Okay, so if we meet on the 3rd, which we're probably not going to meet on Monday, I think I remember saying that previously, we would need to meet sometime earlier in the day, and there need to be enough of us who could meet earlier in the day. And I know that can be kind of challenging with work schedules.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions right now, but I obviously need to study it a little more. So yep. We'll still be able to make modifications possibly on the 3rd?
Absolutely. I will have my laptop with me. We'll probably be meeting in person, barring, terrible weather, and I'll just be making edits to the laptop that the committee approves that day. So I think if you have edits you want to make, most preferable would be for you to write them out beforehand, or for anyone to write their edits out beforehand. It's not totally necessary, but it might help us move along quicker, especially if we have a lot of edits. But if not, we'll just figure out how to edit them on the spot, and then we'll get that. We'll adopt a final report as a committee and then send it on to finance later that day, is what I'm hoping.
Good.
Yeah. What do you know what time on the 3rd we were talking?
No, we didn't set a time. Let's see. Mr. Turk and Mr. Unbehan, what do you all work all day on Tuesday the 3rd, or what's your schedules like? I know you both work full time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be at work too.
Okay.
If it was in the evening on the 3rd, I have a tentative potential for a special meeting on the 3rd. So.
Okay.
In the evening.
You could meet on the 3rd, is what you're saying, if it's in the evening?
No, I have a personnel and negotiations meeting Tuesday night, the 3rd.
Understood.
And
you cannot.
There might be a special meeting following that. So Tuesday for me is pretty much out of the. I'd do Tuesday the 3rd.
Okay, so I think our only chance is either meeting Monday in the evening or later afternoon, like say at 5 or 6 o'clock, or if Carrie Severson can make it during the day on the 3rd, then we might be able to patch a quorum together, but, you know, maybe we should be, I could do a little investigating with all the members and seeing what works best. Does the evening or late afternoon of Monday the 2nd not work for anyone on the call right now?
Sean, the 2nd's a holiday for county employees.
It is. Okay. Got it. Thank you. That stops that one. Okay, so it sounds like it's going to be on Tuesday the 3rd, but we have to make sure that Carrie Severson can make it to that meeting. I don't think Mayor Todd will be able to make it during the day, but I'll check with him just to see if he can. And then if Supervisor Turk, I don't know if this is okay with you, like if you can go through it and submit any edits you'd like to
What time are you looking at on
have
the
us
3rd? I
consider.
might be able to be there during the day.
Oh, okay. Oh, you might. Okay.
Yes. Looking at my calendar right now.
I think we're probably working around you.
Okay.
If you can make it, what's a good window of time for you?
How much gap do we want between this meeting and the finance meeting?
We don't need a huge gap.
We have land and
Oh, sorry.
zoning. We have land and zoning right before finance.
I was thinking there was something else that should have been on my calendar. Yeah. So this would be my 3rd meeting of the day.
Yeah, sorry, Dave.
Here's.
Maybe, I don't know what's going to work better for Supervisor Severson, morning or early afternoon.
Other times I think he can make the morning. I kind of feel like sometimes if it's early enough, then he needs to go to sleep. So if he's still up from work.
Okay. Yeah, I could be free like after 9:30 in the morning.
Okay, so after 9:30. Okay, and then what's your window of time that you could be available?
I would, well, probably till noon for that.
Till noon. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I need to be back in my office so I can get some things done before land and zoning at 3.
Okay, and then let's see, Bob and Steve, does 9:30 work okay for both of you on Tuesday?
Fine.
That works fine with me. This is Bob.
Yep.
Okay, and Barb, does that work for MIS? Did you say yes, Barb?
Sorry about that. Yes, that should be fine.
Okay, and then Mr. Langrick, can you make that work in your schedule too?
Good to go, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go ahead and just, when we do adjournment, let's just adjourn to that time, and then I'll check in with Supervisor Severson, and if there's a better time, say a little later in the morning, then I will maybe shift the meeting to that time unless anyone else has an issue in the late morning. But say 11 a.m. works for him better than 9:30, then I'd probably shift it there just so we can get more people there.
And Sean, this is Aaron.
Yep.
I can try to make it work. Is there going to be a Zoom option, or is this in person?
This will be in person and on WebEx. We'll have both, or you could join by phone too.
Okay. I'll see what I can do to make it work.
Is in person better for you, or
I
are you
like.
saying that?
I prefer in person, but typically on Tuesdays I'm in Middleton.
Got it. Okay, so
but,
you'd be joining
I'll see what I can
remotely.
do.
Okay.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Okay, and I'll get in touch with Mayor Todd too, and see if he can shift his schedule for that day, since it's a pretty important one. So, okay. So I think, let's see. I don't know that. Let me go back to the document or the cover sheet here. I'm not hearing any other comments on the plan now. I think you all just need some time to digest it. So are you all comfortable with passing a motion to release the current draft form of the report for comments and further development? I mean, it's kind of already out there. I emailed it to everyone, but if you all are comfortable with that, it might be good just to formally push it out from our committee.
Push out from our committee to who?
Well, we could, you know, we could say, say I could, after this meeting, I could re-forward it to the whole county board and department heads and say, if you have comments on this, please submit them to us. But we don't have to do that either. But that's one step we could take to invite some more feedback if we'd like to.
I would be fine with that. I mean, the more input we get, the better.
Okay, is anyone opposed to doing that?
Nope.
Okay, so maybe it's like a motion to release the current draft of the referendum report to county board members and department heads for comments and further development to be considered by the referendum ad hoc committee at the next meeting.
I can make that motion. Carol makes that motion.
Okay, motion by Carol.
I'll second.
I'll second. Oh, he's got it.
Second by Turk. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion passes. So I'll send that email out after the meeting, just inviting that feedback from folks. Anything else anyone wants to say before we move to adjournment? Does anyone have any future agenda items? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, January 3rd at 9:30 a.m. in the county boardroom and via WebEx.
Bob, I would so move.
Okay, motion by Frank,
I'll second. This is Aaron.
second by Unbihan. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you for the relatively short meeting, everybody.
Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Okay. Yeah, Merry Christmas.